Welcome to the Play Create Forward podcast. I'm Kirsten Gunnerud.
I'm Jill Johnson.
And welcome. It's the end of February. This is the last week of February, our month of love and exploring your heart and loving yourself so that you have more to give to everybody else and all that kind of thing. How's that working for you, Jilly?
Well, it's been good. We were talking earlier about kind of when things don't go as planned, and we were joking about Mercury retrograde and how so often when something's a little haywire, we'll say to each other, like, is there something off in the stars? What's going on with the planets? But regardless if you believe in any of that or not, I think it's a great opportunity to talk about when things look out of sort. So when they talk about retrograde, they're saying that it looks as if the planet is moving backwards in its tracks.
Yeah.
So it's like it's orbiting another direction. And with Mercury, we were talking about how it's all about the art of communication. And I think when these two things collide, when things look off, they don't look as they appear. And when communication is off, they both really have an impact. So for me, I was just thinking about playing with that idea of how we're still in that level of caring for ourselves and self-love when things get a little sticky, or when we're not feeling good, or when we can't pay the rent, or when things don't feel right in our house, or whatever it might be. It's like when I think what Mercury retrograde and that idea always reminds us of is things don't always go as planned. I mean, 99% of the time they don't. And so how do we adjust to that so that it still feels like we're within our plan, but we're also letting go of what we think it needs to be and how it needs to turn out. And, I think that's a great thing to do if you have kids. I mean, I feel like that's a day-to-day practice, a minute-by-minute practice of what you think is going to happen and then what really does.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love this on so many levels because it's one of my indicators of how I'm feeling about myself, and whether I'm caring about myself is how I internalize when those things happen.
Yeah.
So I am really good at, and I'm finally getting better at, when everything feels like it's going south, the first person I blame is myself.
Yeah.
The world is against me and things aren't working out and I must have done something to create this, and on and on and on. And what I'm learning is as soon as I go there, things get worse instead of better. And 99% of the time it had nothing to do with that. It's just life.
Yeah.
Just how things go. And sometimes what has always been helpful for me as a tool, and I love astrology, I'm fascinated by it, but I still wouldn't say I completely 100% buy into it, but it's an awesome tool.
Yeah.
Because when Mercury is going retrograde and everything's going south, it makes it really easy for me to go, okay, this isn't me. This is what's happening.
Yep.
But if I did that more often, even when Mercury wasn't going retrograde,
Yep.
if I just had that compassion for myself and trusted that the world isn't against me and these things aren't, all happening because of something I did, imagine, and when I do that, it's game changer, total game changer.
Yep.
Because then I can
think
from that place. I can do something like that. If you feel like everybody's against you or everything's going south, or and you have no control over it, you're stuck. You're totally stuck.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about sometimes seeing it from a different perspective. So whether it's, going for a walk and getting clarity, or you jump in the shower, you get your best ideas, or, you just happen to hear somebody say, oh, I think something's in retrograde. It kind of stops you in your track. It does a pause where you're like, wait, is there something else that could be contributing? And I think that even just playing into the idea that there is something else, that it's not just a logical path, helps us expand our vision and our understanding, and our ability to adjust and even like loosen up about it. Because I know for myself, when things are feel dire or hard, I'm very serious. I am very locked in. I am locked and loaded. That is the way it's going. That is the path it's traveling. That's just it. But if I can adjust my senses just a little and play with another option, it helps to open up and get me out of that concretized way of thinking, which it is all thoughts. And so we keep coming back to this. But, the reason we were talking about self love this month is just that term of like, if we're being kind and compassionate to ourselves, we have more of an ability to be kind and compassionate to others.
Yeah.
Which just, it's like the pebble in the pond. The rings just keep going out and out and out. And we don't even know the impact. And we don't need to know, it's just knowing that we feel a little more calm. We feel a little more softer towards ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're able to come with a little softer perspective to others.
Yeah. The compassion thing is huge. And I think that what I find to a certain degree is those times when things are tough and feel like they're going sideways, end up being in my toolbox to use when then I have a cashier who's just like rude as all get out, or a friend who seems just ticked off at me or whatever, to remember this isn't just her and me. Something happened before, something's going to happen after. I don't know what created this. So why am I assuming it's me? And why am I assuming I can't do anything about it, when maybe all that person needs to hear is, I hope the rest of your day goes well, or how are you doing? Or, like Sam said, in the right relationship, I don't think this is me. What's going on? How can I help? Because I think sometimes we forget maybe the gift in those times that go sideways, especially when they're just little things, or maybe all of it, is that to remember we all have those experiences, and to have compassion for someone else when that's happening for them.
When you were talking, I was thinking about, so Matt, my husband, and I did long distance for 4.5 years. And this was before FaceTime, really dating myself, really before Skype.
Yeah.
Like email was kind of catching on. But I remember, he's a sales guy. So he was on the phone all day.
Yeah.
And the last thing you wanted to do at night was be on the phone all night.
Yeah.
And, it was this art of knowing what you were. So if I was really excited and I called in to him and he had a hard day, it was really hard for him to receive that I was excited. It was really hard for me to receive that he was not. And so we had to come to this place where we just kind of had to be okay with what we were calling into, and that we were going to miss details of the day, and we were going to miss a lot of things throughout our relationship in those times just because we were far apart. And you can't just assume that how your day was is how the person's day is. How you're going to react is how they're going to react. And so I think that's a big thing too, is that we never know what we're walking into, and we never know what we're leaving behind. And we just have to be able to show up with what we have alone and not get lost in assumptions. I mean, it's an ongoing thing, like if I run into a friend and it seems a little off, I will just go home and think about it. And then I have to finally be like, either just let it go or call and say, hey, was this really what was happening? Or is it just me being off today? Instead of creating these long storylines of just chaos that are just thought bubbles that aren't really true, except for me.
Yes, this is where the fit and well language of improv works so well for me, right?
Yeah.
And that being
Which language again?
An improv language.
Or what was that?
The language of improv.
Yes, but will you say more about?
Oh, fit and well. Yes.
Oh,
so
fit and well.
Well, what I'm realizing with what we're doing this month is kind of the same thing. So when you are in a place where you are fit and well, therefore loving yourself enough to have energy to have that compassion and love for others, you can show up differently. So at times in my life, when I was in long distance relationships, is what's coming to mind, I would have in my head that they should be so excited to talk to me. I should totally be the one who changes their day, instead of they're just having a bad day and they need time to themselves. Like I couldn't at that point in my life understand that, right? So I'm so impressed that you guys did that so long ago.
Well,
Uh,
I
and
mean, don't be that impressed.
well, I'm sure it was hard.
I think a lot of it was hindsight too.
Yeah, it is. But if I had had enough self-love for myself at the time, I wouldn't have needed that person to need me that way,
Yep.
right? And so, and I wouldn't have needed it to play out the way I wanted it to getting on the phone. I would have been able to be in the moment and let it be what it was, because I didn't need that coming from outside of me. I already had it inside of me.
Yes.
And I see this with so many of the corporate groups that I work with, where they're taking things from each other personally all the time and reading into situations all the time and creating their stories of what somebody else is doing and why they're doing it all the time. And my guess is probably 95% of those are not true,
Yep.
because it isn't personal. It's the meeting they had before the meeting they had with that person, or it's something going on in their life at home, or it's any number of things. And yet it's so easy to jump to that place of, this is coming at me, or um, this isn't good, or this person is rude, or instead of showing up and being able to even maybe shift that,
Mm-hmm.
because you aren't taking it personally, and they can't, so that sounds, I'm going to say it, they can't hurt you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're filled, you're
Yeah.
full,
Yep.
you're full.
Yep. I agree. And I think it's perfect because we're kind of going into our next month about creativity. And I think this is a great way of how we use creativity and play, even when things are sticky.
Yeah.
And we keep coming back to those words because it's our language. Whatever you want to use, it's up to you. But for us, we like that they jolt the usual and what might be the predictable,
Yeah.
and let us see that it is all unpredictable, that there isn't a linear progress. And so we can step in any moment and shift the course of the direction if we're open to it and we just try. And so our idea today was like playing with that idea of Mercury retrograde, was the whole thought, like when you hear something and it just makes you swivel your head and shift. Like I'm sure that's happened when I was really sick. I ran into 5 people in 1 week that said something that made me stop in my tracks. And I think those are the moments where you're like, oh, why did that pique my, or somebody, I had the third person yesterday on the plane tell me about a book. And I'm like, all right, got to pick that book up. Just
Yeah.
little things. It is kind of a game, and it's kind of fun to like walk into synchronicity and walk into play, because that's what fuels creativity. That's what artists use to fuel, is what's intriguing, what is interesting in that moment, where is my curiosity really peaking.
Yeah.
And that's how we start to get back into that alive body, instead of that zombie like stance of just trying to get through each day.
Yeah.
And so I think as we go into our next month, we're playing more in creativity and it's such a massive thing.
It is.
So we're only going to hit the tip
Maybe
of
we'll
the
do a
iceberg.
couple months of creativity.
And then I think I loved this whole conversation for today started because Kirsten was really wanting to do a loving kindness meditation, which made us think of how we want to start coming in with meditations as way, or as I like to say, creative visualizations. We notice that sometimes with meditation, it gets in people's mind that has to be this certain way. And when I was competing as an athlete, I always used visualization, which was a form of meditation, really,
Yeah.
of how I would see myself going through a course. And I still use it for a lot of things today. So we're going to start playing with that as well.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. And I've had people who are like, I don't meditate.
Yeah.
And when we talk about it as a visualization, some of those people are now loving, listening,
Yeah.
and doing that. And the other thing I love about thinking of these as visualization over guided meditation, maybe, again, whatever works for you, is a guided meditation feels like something you listen to when you're guided. Almost every tool we'll share, for the most part, is something people can play with
Mhm.
and take it and turn it into their own, right? So it's just the starting point. And a meditation could be the same thing. You could do the same thing with a meditation, but the idea is that these are just starting points to play. Like, one of the things we talked about in a flight camp I had today was just find tools. And even if, like astrology, even if you don't necessarily 100% buy into astrology, if it's a tool that works for you on a bad day because it says something good, that's a tool. That's a good thing.
You know, I was
If a
talking to one of my supervisors at where I sometimes do some extra work, and we were talking about knitting and how that's her meditation, you know, because you just can let go and just, so I think it's finding your own way that really resonates and
Yeah,
trying others on.
yes. And just playing with it. And even if
Yep.
it's something you're resistant to, play. Like, try it a
Yeah.
couple times. And maybe you'll find you like it more than you thought you did. Or maybe some aspect of it'll work, even though some others don't. And
Yeah.
but all of these can be tools to filling your own container, to loving yourself a little bit more, to seeing things with a different perspective that's more compassionate and self-loving. And then your ability to bring that out to the world just becomes that much greater. So even, dare I say this, even self-love and compassion can be, and maybe should be, a creative process,
Yeah.
or at least a
Ooh,
playful
that
one.
was really good. Thank you. I think that's what we're trying to get across.
Love
It's all a
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
Well, thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you. We will be back next week, and next week we'll start playing with creativity more and move into that, which I'm super excited for. We'll get a meditation up before the end of this month that we'll share with everybody as well. So watch for that in your email, or if you subscribe to the podcast, it'll be in the podcast, and we'll have a special title for it, so you know it's something a little different and exciting to check out.
Awesome. Thanks, Sunny.
Okay. Thank
Take
you.
care.
See you soon.